What's going on, everybody? We are back. This is another episode of the Cloud Chronicles. I'm your host, Johnny Blaze. And joining me today, I have a very special guest, a very funny man by the name of Paul Green. He is an actor, he is a comedian. I want you to welcome him one more time. His name is Paul Green. Give it up. Yeah, I like it. I like it, man. What's going on, man? Appreciate you
Hey,
joining me.
not a whole lot. Just out here in Los Angeles doing nothing.
Oh, the big LA. LA.
Mm-hmm.
LA.
Wow. LI.
The tacos
We're
are out.
we're very fancy and sophisticated out here. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. Bringing that energy, man. Thank you again for joining me, man. So like I said, everybody, Paul Green, this is his first time on the show. He's an actor, he's a comedian. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself to you and give you a little bit of background in himself about how long he's been in comedy and that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I started doing comedy actually about maybe 12, 11, 12 years ago. I actually started as an improv comedian in Phoenix, Arizona, at a troupe out there called The Jesters. That's kind of where I cut my teeth in comedy performance. I perform with them all the time. They had a regular show on the weekends. They did 4 shows every weekend. They did a bunch of corporate shows. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth in terms of doing regular comedy performances. And then about 6 years ago, I decided to branch out and start doing stand up. So I also started doing stand up in Arizona. And then my stand up comedy teacher at the time, Tony Visick, said I should bring my, why be what's the whole, why be a small
Say that
fish in
one
a
part
big
again
pond
right
or
there.
big fish in small pond or whatever. So I was like, cool, I'll go be a little fish in a big pond, and moved out to Los Angeles in 2015
All right.
and been out here pursuing comedy and acting and doing all of the things and having a great time.
So how is it? How do you like it out there, man? I mean, I've heard. I mean, I see the memes. I hear how crazy it is. I had someone on the podcast in December from California. Tell me about how it is out there, man, with what's going on and how that's been.
Well, I mean, before COVID, I mean, it's really the mecca of one of the meccas of comedy. It's obviously the mecca of TV and the acting industry out here. It was great. Yeah, it's had a great time. Obviously, since COVID hit, I mean, everybody's had to adjust, and everything's still locked down. LA's been one of the most strict lockdown cities, I think, in the country. Really, I mean, we just recently had our outdoor dining banned, so you cannot eat inside or outside of a restaurant. Obviously, all entertainment has just been officially closed.
Right.
There's been some entertainment venues that have tried to do outdoor stuff or like drive-in stuff, and even a lot of those were getting shut down. The Comedy Store tried to do comedy on their patio outside. That got shut down by the county a couple months ago. So yeah, it's in that regard, it's been really challenging. I've been fortunate. I've booked a couple gigs in other states, like Arizona is fairly open, so I've been able to do some stand up in Arizona and in Utah as well. But other than that, man, yeah, everybody's just kind of hanging on, trying to figure out like virtual comedy shows. I've done a lot of virtual comedy shows, which
I was gonna ask you that. I was gonna ask you if
yeah.
you've been able to participate in those. I've been seeing those online, man. I haven't got a chance to check out one. Tell me about the ones you've been on. How was that?
They're all right. You know what I mean? It's obviously we're dealing with a situation that is not ideal. So everything that comes out of that is not ideal. But it's I'm a pretty positive, optimistic person. But doing virtual comedy to me is just like slightly better than doing nothing. And so
I
um,
mean, it's probably better than doing nothing, though, right? I mean,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's still a chance. I mean, it is a little bit of a different skill set to be able to do stand up. Like in a Zoom meeting, and it introduces a whole new, different level of complications that you just don't deal with when you're just doing stand up in front of a live audience. Just the technology, trying to figure out how Zoom is going to handle things, and um, but we're figuring out. I've had a couple of really great Zoom shows that were really fun. The audiences were there. They're hungry for comedy. Everybody needs the laugh right now. I mean, it's a very tumultuous time. There's just been a lot of crazy things, and that's what comedy is there, is to try to bring sanity through humor through everything. And
Right.
yeah, so I mean, they've been okay. I haven't watched a lot um, of, of virtual comedy, except for the shows that I'm in. Obviously, I'll stay in and watch the other performers to be supportive. And yeah, and I was able to, like, okay, yeah, I'm in a comedy show. Like, it just requires a little bit stronger imagination and commitment to, like,
Yeah.
to be committed to the comedian through a phone than it is obviously when you're there live. But
So let me
you
ask you
know,
something. Your virtual shows, have they been 100% virtual, or have you been able to have like even like a small audience of like 12 or 10 or 5, or is it just 100% you by yourself?
yeah, all of the virtual shows I've done have been all virtual. Like literally me right here. Like I'm in my living room. I have this green screen. I'll just crop out the green screen and put like a brick background, but it's literally me talking to my phone, like nobody here. So, um, and then it's just really up to whoever is really producing the show. S- Sometimes they're really good at getting the other people in the Zoom meeting to unmute,
Hmm.
and then you actually can get that kind of call and response, you know, taking into account delays and stuff for technology. But I've had a couple shows where they were really well attended, 50, 60 people in this Zoom meeting, and most of them are muted and most of them have their cameras off, but maybe like 10 or 15 would actually unmute and have their cameras on. So you'd see them sit in their living room, and you can see that they're engaged, because you can see in the gallery view, you can be like, oh, that person is engaged. They're laughing at what I'm saying. I can actually interact with them. I can be like, oh, you see a dog run through the camera. You can actually do that
Right.
and interact. The only challenge is, like, not everybody else is maybe sees that as well. Again, I mean, obviously we're making do. Like,
For sure.
this is definitely just a kind of a stopgap until whatever is going to happen with this pandemic is going to happen, and then we'll be able to start actually living life as we used to, without a fear of death. Well, we always have a fear of death, but a more imminent fear of death, I guess.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's been an interesting adjustment, and we're all just kind of pulling through in the entertainment industry. And it's definitely been a unique challenge in LA, because LA has been particularly strict on the lockdowns and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you were talking about back when the world was normal. So tell me about your first show. Like, let's talk about that. Like, did you puke? Did you have some Eminem from 8 Mile moments going on in the bathroom? What happened, man? Tell me about your first time you got on stage. How'd that went? And did you bomb? Did you do good?
Well, I mean, I've been performing in some degree or another. I mean, literally since elementary school. I kind of started acting out in elementary school. It kind of became the class clown. That's how I dealt with my insecurities, and that's how I dealt with my trying to figure out my place in the world. Was I realized I could get my whole class to laugh, and
What?
so I was kind of used to being in that situation of, like, everybody's looking at me and I'm gonna say something that makes everybody laugh. And then I remember doing like little plays in elementary school. I remember me and my friends got together and we like made little comedy videos, just
Right.
like his mom had a camcorder or whatever. And
Uh-huh.
so we would just film these little mini movies and stuff, um,
So
and do
you
little
were
skits.
you're what we call an OG, triple OG TikToker. You were TikToking
Oh,
even around, man.
yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah. I was TikToking in 1992
yeah,
before the I was TikToking before the internet existed. Uh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. So, probably in terms of like really nerve wracking, I do remember the first show that I ever did with the Jesters, which for me was a big deal. When because I started taking improv classes there, and then after like 6 months of improv classes, the owner, Jeff Rawls, he's like, "Hey, we really like you. Like you. You think it'd be great? Why don't you? We'd like to invite you into the main troupe," which was like a huge honor for me.
Right.
And uh, and this comedy troupe in Arizona, they actually had a really big following. They did really well. They had a good brand, and a lot of people liked them and would attend their shows. And when it was, and when I like let people know, like, oh my gosh, I'm a jester now. I have my first show. A bunch of my friends came out. So I had like 30 friends in the audience,
Right.
and it was like my first show, and I was just nerve wracked, and like the rehearsal that week didn't go well, like, because I was kind of the new guy, so the other players in the troupe, kind of the veterans, didn't really know me yet. They didn't really trust me,
Right.
so I didn't really feel that like support of like, hey, you're going to do great. I kind of felt like, oh, we don't know you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like
And so I went to that first show, and it's
they're like, get up there, prove yourself, and then maybe we'll
yeah,
say hi.
yeah, which is not a good environment to be vulnerable. Like, it's not professional sports. Professional sports, you have to rise to those occasions. In comedy, well, for me, I need to feel safe. You know what I mean? I'm not Tiger Woods. Uh, so honestly, it went okay. It's not like I remember the first thing that I did in that show just totally bombed. You
Right.
know what I mean? But everybody in like 80% of the audience were my friends. And so I totally bombed, and then they just totally cheered for me. You know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
I mean, it was kind of like I couldn't really fail because I had such a supportive audience. But yeah, I remember being terribly nervous. And then the first time I ever did an open mic as a stand up comedian, because although I improv came very naturally to me. Stand up was a real challenge for me. I avoided stand up for years and years and years. Never wanted to do it. I'm like, I just want to do improv. I just want to do acting.
Mhm.
But I kept just have this little poll like,
Yeah.
we should give stand up a try. Give stand up a try. And I remember the club was, I think, called Stand Up Scottsdale or Scottsdale Live. I don't actually think that club exists anymore, but they were just having an open mic, for do like 3 minutes. You just sign up. I went like super early. I went like an hour early because I wanted to get first on the list because
Right. Right.
I wanted to go first and then just be done.
Right.
And I actually had a couple, yeah, and I actually had a couple friends who said they're going to come support me. So I showed up an hour early. I was first on the list, and then the bookers at the club just started bumping me, bumping me, bumping me. They bumped me for 3 hours. Like every single other comedian, they just kept putting up in front of me. Oh, we have a walk-in from such and such. Oh, we have this person, and they put their girlfriends up before me, and then like because they didn't know who I was and they didn't care, so they just kept bumping me down the list. And like I finally went up there. I'm like, am I still doing this? I was first on the list, and they're like, oh yeah, you're still here. Like they like it was their plan just to butt me until I left. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I'm still here, and I have friends in the audience who had to just sit through like hours of deplorable open mic amateur comedy, till they got them. And that was by far the most nerve wracking experience to go up and do stand up, for the first time. And again, like it went okay. I didn't really bomb, but
Was that out there in LA?
that was in Arizona. That was in
That was, so
Scottsdale.
how was your first California or LA? How was your first
Oh,
LA?
that's a good question. I'm trying to think of.
Was the crowd like harsher? Were they like prove yourselves to us? Or was
Yeah, I do feel that. Okay, I do remember this. I remember I signed up for a stand-up comedy class in Los Angeles
okay?
when I first came out,
All right.
and I remember like getting in front of that class of students, and these are like LA students. It was at Flappers in Burbank, and that I remember being very nerve wracking. Um, but actually, everybody in the class was like really great. Like, actually, I met friends in that class who I'm still friends with to this day. Um, yeah, it's an interesting kind of paradox in LA because on one hand, it is like fiercely competitive,
Right. Right.
but also on the other hand, like everybody out here, are these artist unicorns, who have a gift and they're very passionate about what they do. And I find that those people are actually also some of the most like compassionate and supportive because you're in the same boat, like how tough it is out here.
Right.
And yeah, you'll find every once in a while somebody who's just bitter and hates their life, or is just trying to like climb, make it big and make it famous and just trying to kiss ass and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, but I mean, you're going to get that anywhere. But
That's true. That's true.
yeah, and there is, definitely an element of like, when you're doing a stand up show and like you're on the same show as like celebrities and
Right.
people know them and love them. And then, I did a show just last year, obviously before the pandemic, where I was supposed to open for Adam Carolla.
Okay.
And before me was Drew Lynch. And Drew Lynch, I don't know if you know him, but he blew up on AGT. So he did America's Got Talent like 2 or 3 seasons ago. He got the gold buzzer from Howie Mandel,
Okay.
had a killer set. And now he's pretty big. Like before the pandemic, I looked at his schedule. He was touring all over the world. Like he had a worldwide tour and stuff. And hilarious, funny guy. He was before me. So like, yeah. So, he has a huge following and he's brilliantly funny. He has a stutter. And so he actually stutters. And so he has that like overcoming adversity story. He's got a tremendous energy. He's really positive. And he has been touring, headlining for like a couple years,
Right.
And he comes out and he just slays the audience. And then it was supposed to be me and then Adam Carolla. I'm 1 minute from going on stage and the booker taps me on the shoulder. She's got Adam Carolla next to her. She goes, "Hey, Adam Carolla actually wants to go home early, so he's going to go on now. And then you'll go on after him."
All right. Oh, okay.
It's like, no, I'm sorry, Adam. I think I'm going to go now. You wait your turn. Like, what am I supposed to say? So I was like, okay. And Adam was just really nice. He's like, yeah, thanks. And then he went on. And again, famous. He does like 20 minutes and he's so funny. He's so good. You know what I mean? Then he gets on the stage and it's like, hey, everybody, now somebody you've never heard of and you don't know, Paul Green, and then but like, it's like, but what do you do? Like, I have to go on and be like, no, I belong on this stage too. You know what I mean? Like, and I can either rise to that occasion or, go out there and bomb, and
Yeah.
I just went out there and just called attention to it. It's like, does anybody feel like the show just got less famous? And just
embrace it, man. Embrace
Yeah.
who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, the audience is, they're thinking the same thing. And so it's like, I'll just put them at ease and let them know, like, hey, nope, I'm funny too. You know what I mean? Like, I understand what's going on here. And I had a very similar situation in a comedy festival where I followed, is it Kate Flannery? Oh, shoot, I'm going to miss her name. She played Meredith on The Office.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Something Irish, like Kate O'Flaherty or O'Flannery or something. I'm sorry if Kate ever watches this.
Right.
Brilliantly funny. So she has a partner, and they do like a lounge singer act. I can't remember her partner's name, but it's like a duo comedy act. Both of them are just brilliantly funny. They have this 10-minute lounge singer act that involves music and they're singing and choreography, and they have these characters. He's got the brandy glass and the cigarette. She's in this like plum like jumpsuit, and he's in like this 1970s outlandish tuxedo, and they're just tight and they're so funny.
Full on show right before you.
Full on show right before me. They were number one, and then I was after them. So it's like the same thing, like they just slay the audience. They're famous and they're funny and they're talented and they're great, and then it's like, all right, that was, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. All right, our next comedian is somebody you've never heard of. Please look, you know what I mean? Like, and it's the same thing, right? I just have to come out and own that. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic because sometimes you just get, thrown to the sharks, but, in both those situations, the audiences were just so amazing. They're so supportive, like audiences, I think for the most part want you to do well.
Right.
Unless it's, like Showtime at the Apollo where they actually want you to fail because that's more fun. You know what I mean? Like,
that seems to be the trend there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But even then, like, they actually still want you to like, that, they want you to be so good that they can't help but like you. You know what I mean? But like, if they have any reason to not like you, and obviously I'm overgeneralizing.
On the boot button, like just go ahead.
Yeah.
Don't front.
Yeah. And then they're like, okay, that was pretty funny. Okay, I'll give him that. Okay, but like, but yeah, you're starting 6 feet deep, and you have to dig out of the grave. You know what I mean? Um,
Well, I
but
was gonna
that's
I was gonna ask you about that when you about following those famous people. I was gonna say, well, wasn't a good thing about that the audience is like really like they're warmed up and they're already laughing, so it's
yeah,
not you don't have to like how you were just saying kind of dig yourself out of an unfunny hole by somebody before you know what I mean? Was it
yeah.
easier that way, or do you think it'd be easier like following somebody not funny?
I've done both, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, my experience is if you're good and you're funny, and the audience is there to laugh, which is most of the time. Most of the time, people don't spend $20 and then spend another $40 on a 2 drink minimum, to have a bad time. Like they want to have a good time. They want you to be funny, and again, and maybe there's a couple rare cases, where whatever. And I've been in those audiences too, where the audience just weren't having it for whatever reason. But I mean, that's very rare. It's been very rare for me. Um, and if you just go out and you know that you're funny and you know that you belong there, and you've honed your craft and you're ready for the moment, it's like I've mostly had really good experiences, and most of the bad experiences are anomalies, and sometimes it's me, sometimes it's the crowd. There's been times where I just wasn't as well prepared, or I was in my head, or I just wasn't really, bring it my all. And
Right.
you can't always blame the audience. Like
Of course.
every once in a while you can blame the audience, though. Every once in a while you can be like, no, I was on my A game,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Audience.
yeah. And I'm like, now that, this audience, just something was off with them, and I've had those experiences too, where I'm like, I'm coming out and I know and it can be there's so many variables too. It could be like, if the host, didn't really get them energized, or if they're not really focused, or it's a bad venue, or, there can be a myriad of reasons. But for the most part, it's like, if the audience is not having a good time, it's the performer's fault. It's like, we're professionals. That's what we do to deliver, like, is we know how to show up and entertain an audience. And if the audience isn't entertained 99% of the time, my philosophy is it's on the performer. So,
I mean, that's a good way to look at it too. Definitely a good way.
yeah.
Let me ask you. So give me. Let's talk about some of your favorite comedians. Like,
Mm.
do you have favorite comedians from when you before you started actually doing it, and now since you've begun, or you've actually started like doing it, and you've been on stage and you've done some shows. Do you have any new favorites?
Yeah. So probably, I mean, I remember just watching stand up, growing up, but the first comedian who I actually have a recollection of is a comedian named Wendy Lieberman, or it might be Liebman. I'm doing bad with names here. Ironically enough, Wendy Liebman was responsible for the stand-up comedy competition that I won, that got me on the stage with Adam Carolla. So she was actually in the audience.
Full circle there.
Yeah, not to make that situation even more intense for me, but I was actually performing. So I had this memory of seeing Wendy Liebman on television, gosh, like 20, 25 years ago, just on some random stand-up comedy thing that was going on television. And I remembered a specific joke that she said. And that joke stuck in my mind for years. And I would even kind of use it sometimes, not, I wasn't performing, but just like talking to people, like, and I still remember the joke. She was talking about how she got dumped by a guy or whatever, or like how it didn't work out with this guy. And her joke was, yeah, I was dating this guy, but it didn't work out. I was a morning person and he didn't like me. And, and that was the joke, right?
Right.
And I just remember like, oh, that's so funny. And so I remember for years, anytime I'd be talking to somebody and a girl broke up with me, I'd be like, yeah, it just didn't work out. I'm a morning person and she didn't like me. Yeah. And so and then, it's really cool to be able to like actually perform in front of her and meet her, and be able to kind of say like, hey, that stand-up comedy routine, I remembered that joke for years. And then probably the next one would be Brian Regan. I remember he did a comedy special called I Walked on the Moon, which to me is one of the most brilliantly funny stand-up comedy specials I've ever seen. And one thing that really appealed to me about Brian Regan is I was raised very religious, and so I always was there's kind of this discomfort in the religious community of stand-up comedy because so much of stand-up comedy is perceived as crass, and a lot of it is, and vulgar and stuff like that. And so anytime in my religious community there was a stand-up comedian who was clean, we'd call him clean, like appropriate, like we'd go nuts for him because it was so rare. And it's like, oh, there's somebody in the stand-up comedy community who we can watch and not feel like we're violating our religion. And so when I was kind of starting to discover comedy and stand-up, I remember watching Brian Regan, and he's so clean. He doesn't ever go anywhere vulgar or crass. And by the way, I have no judgment, and I'm not very religious anymore. And so I'm not offended by that at all now. But then that was a huge part of kind of my development as a comedian is learning that, like, oh, I can do stand-up and I can be clean and be appropriate. Like, it's not always just all about being crass and vulgar.
Right.
And Brian Regan was just so funny, and he was so goofy, and I saw him live a couple times, so he was very influential. Now, probably my top three would be Bill Burr, Mike Birbiglia, and Tig Notaro are three that come to mind.
Love Bill Burr.
Oh yeah, I've just become such a huge fan of his. And obviously he's very vulgar, so you can see that I've strayed from my sensitivity there. But yeah, he's so brilliant. And then Mike Birbiglia really blew my mind. He was a friend of mine said, hey, you need to check out this comedian. I watched one of his Netflix specials because he's just straight storytelling, but he's just one of the most brilliant storytellers who's able to do storytelling in an incredibly funny way. There's always kind of this kind of philosophical battle between stand-up comedians, like, well, are you a joke teller or are you a comedian? Are you being truthful or are you making stuff up? And there's always kind of this like back and forth in terms of like, what's the best way or the most, like what's true comedy and all of that.
Right.
So yeah, when I started watching Mike Birbiglia, I was just blown away because he's just 100% honest. Like, you never think that he's lying to you. Now, he could be making up the stories, but they're 100% believable. I mean, he's not flying to the moon. He's not going to Mars. He's not doing anything. It's just like, he's just telling this is my life story, but he's broken it up into such brilliant jokes. And that was really kind of a turning point for me because at that point in my comedy, I was just straight up lying, I was just, I went to the store. It's like, I didn't go to the store. I'm just trying to, I just thought of a joke, and the joke works if I go to the store. So, you know what I mean? So that was really interesting because he really caused me to like look at my material and kind of make a decision. It's like, well, do I want to be more honest or do I want to be more of a joke teller? Like a one-liner. You look at like, Kevin Hart, in his latest stuff, you don't ever feel like Kevin Hart is lying to you. He's just like, this is my life. This is what I'm going through. This is what happened. This is what happened with my son. This is what happened to my wife. Yeah, I cheated on her. This is what happened. You know what I mean? And he just does it, and he's just so funny and real. Like, you don't think that you don't feel like he's making stuff up. Now, he could be. Like, you never really know what really happened.
Or you know what I mean?
Yeah, he might, fudge the truth a little bit here to make it work. But as an audience member, at least for when I watch him, I don't feel that he's lying to me. As opposed to some comedians where you absolutely know, and they telegraph they're not being, it's like Anthony Jeselnik is like completely on the other side. It's like Anthony Jeselnik from joke one, he's like, I'm going to say jokes and none of them are true. And and everything that I'm doing is just to say the most extreme, horrific thing that you possibly think I could say. And if you think I'm going to be this bad, I'm going to make it this bad. And once you think it's this bad, I'm going to say this thing. And by the end of the show, I'm going to be talking about throwing babies down the stairs, and you're going to be laughing hysterically at it. And he does, what I mean? Like, he literally does a bit about dropping a baby for 3 minutes. So so he's kind of on that other end. It's like, he's saying jokes and he's lying to you, but he doesn't pretend. Like, nobody in the audience actually thinks it's true. And that also gives them permission to laugh at the horrific things that he's saying. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. I'm kind of in the middle right now. It's like I'm part truth, and also part joke, and I'm like I'm telling kind of true stories,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of manipulating them through like what my character is, like my onstage persona. But then I'm also just saying jokes,
Mhm.
and the audience I think is pretty good at knowing that, like, oh, okay, he's exaggerating truth and saying jokes within this exaggerated truth, and it's believable in that context.
Right, right.
Is where I'm at right now. Obviously everything evolves and whatnot, but
Right, right, right. I mean, I like it, man. I mean, I like it. I definitely think I think you got to find that mixture of the truth and, but I got to make it funny.
yeah,
You
I mean, yeah,
gotta make it funny to people that weren't there. It might be funny
yeah,
to me. I got to make it funny, But yeah, I definitely.
yeah, yeah, and that's the other side of that is, when I see a lot of up and coming comics, they're so attached to the truth, but it's like, well, this is a comedic entertainment medium.
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't, the audience doesn't actually really care if it's true or not. They care that they're laughing. Like,
yeah,
in my opinion,
yeah.
in Paul Green's opinion of stand-up comedy, comedy means that it's funny.
That makes
And if it's funny, then you're doing stand-up comedy. If it's not funny, that's fine, but you're doing something else. You're doing poetry, or you're doing storytelling, or you're doing performance art,
exactly.
or whatever, which is fine if you want to do that. But it's like, to me, stand-up comedy is somebody who stands up on stage and says things that make people laugh
Mhm.
about every 10 to 30 seconds.
Right,
And if you're doing that, you're doing stand-up comedy. If you're not doing that, that's fine.
right.
You're doing something, and you can do something else. But it's, if people aren't laughing,
Right.
at your story about your traumatic childhood, and it's not funny, and people just feel sad for you and sorry for you, and
Yeah.
you're not. Yeah, that's not really stand-up comedy.
Work that joke then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
All right, man. So we are to the. We are at the lightning round, man. This is
Oh
the
yes.
part where you don't know what to ask you, my friend. Nothing personal here, but we got some funny questions here, some little things. So you're just gonna answer to the best of your abilities. Are you ready?
All right. Let's do it.
Okay. So first thing you think about in the morning.
Well, I work. I
Mhm.
do consulting work for a software, and so I usually wake up. I usually have calls at 6 in the morning, so I usually wake up at 5:55 in the morning, and the first thing I'm thinking of is like, I need to get on my computer and get into a Zoom meeting to have my first like consultation call. So
Right. That is the new morning for America. A lot of
yeah,
Americans, right? Right. Okay. All right.
absolutely,
All right. Hot or cold?
definitely hot.
Hot person. Okay, hot weather person. Okay.
Oh yeah, can't do cold. I'm from Arizona, man. Give me 120 over 60 degrees any day.
I hear you. Okay, so if you weren't a actor slash comedian, what would you be?
Oh, jeez. Probably some sort of software. Well, because I am kind of that already, so I'd probably just be doing more like software consultation, uh, software implementation. I would be doing more of that and probably making a hell of a lot more money.
hey, hey, you got to do what you love, though, man. You got to do what
Hey,
you love.
man,
You really
it's
do.
about the
Okay,
dream.
so finish this sentence for me. I'm at my happiest when.
I'm performing.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about. Okay, favorite food.
Pizza.
Hey, this guy is forever on the show. He is a pizza man after my own heart. Little power, all
I've
that
had
jazz,
I have
man.
consumed so much pizza in my life. I got 2 pizza boxes right there by the trash
That's what I'm talking about,
as
man.
we speak.
Do you
Doesn't
have
do
a
much
favorite
for
sports
for
team?
my diet, but that I'm trying to go on. But what's that?
Hey, if you space the pizza out, you can work. You know what I mean? You just gotta
Hey, I don't
juggle.
gotta lose all 10 pounds in a week. I'll lose it in a month and eat how I want to eat. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, man, you better. You better. Do you have a favorite sports team?
Arizona Cardinals.
Cardinals. Okay, cool.
Kyler Murray, baby. We just missed the playoffs. We could not close out the season this year, but
man, he's from my home state, so he's from Texas, man. I like watching him.
oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Let me see. So, do you have any shows coming up that you want to tell everybody about? Like where you're going to be here? Any projects?
Yeah, actually, I got a couple things coming up. I just booked a show in Indiana, actually, at the Fort Wayne Comedy Club. I'll be there February 12th and 13th. That is a clean comedy show as well. And then I will be in Arizona again at a brand new comedy club called JP's Comedy Club, which just opened. I actually opened up during the pandemic, Lord bless them. And I'll be headlining there. I'll be doing, I believe, 5 shows from March. Shoot, I shouldn't have known the days. Whatever the Thursday is, that's like the second week in March. I think it's the 11th or so. Mm-hmm. Somewhere around in there. All those dates are on my website at paulgreencomedy.com. I do keep an active performance calendar, which has been very bleak over the last year when most every performance I had got canceled within about a 2-week period. Not bitter. We're all in this together. However, I still do have my calendar online. And yeah, you can see those dates if you are in Arizona or Indiana. And then I do have several Zoom shows and stuff that are always going on, virtual shows where you can see from anywhere with an internet connection and device.
Awesome. So tell them where they can find your social media handles and stuff. So you, other than are you on? I know you're on Facebook.
Yeah, so Paul Green Comedy everything. Paul Green Comedy, just PAULGREEN Comedy. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. I think that's all of them.
Right. Linktree.
Yeah.
Everything. Hey, well, I appreciate you sitting down with me today, man. I know you're very busy out there. He's probably got a movie. He's got a scene he's got to go shoot right now, man. Eddie Murphy's tired of waiting on him. So
it's a tough life, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, heavy as the head that wears the crown, right? All right, man. So everyone, I want you to give a big thank you to Paul Green out there, all the way out in LA. LA. Paul Green, one more time on the show. Thank you for joining me, man. One more time. This has been the Cloud Chronicles. It's your host, Johnny Blaze, man. It's another episode. We're going to keep these rocking out. This is the second comedian I've had. I've been trying to, I love it, man. I love the comedians have good energy, man. So it's always good. So this was a great episode, man. Thank you again. All right, we're going to get up out of here, man. Everybody take care. Tell somebody you love them. As I always like to say, mental health is real. Take care of this. It'll take care of you. We're in this together. I'm your host, Johnny Blaze. Check out exclusive episodes of the Cloud Chronicles on TV 33. You can download that now on Roku and Google Play. And check out also new content from artists all over the globe on TV. We got a lot of stuff going on there. Check it out. We're up out of here. Paul Green, one more time.
See you later, everybody.
Paul Green Comedy, everything. Paul Green Comedy. Go subscribe. Go like. Go follow Paul Green Comedy, everything right now. This is the Cloud Chronicles. Everybody take care. We'll see you next time. Peace.